What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with NIO, Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I want to break down what's going on with the economic calendar moving forward, what the news is saying about NIO moving forward as well, what you should be watching for as we approach next week. Before I break things down information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull and deposit $500, you are guaranteed 20 free stocks. And this offer ends very soon, in just 5 days. Anyways, for NIO, we have a nice inverse cup and handle like structure, and NIO is currently once again respecting a downtrend. As NIO is showing some weakness right here, do not forget we have this gap to fill down here. And this will likely get filled as NIO has some downside potential, at least for the short term. But don't forget, guys, for the long term and even the medium term, I still see upside for NIO. I'm still a big bull overall. I do believe NIO will once again break out of the sixes and continue to push higher later on down the line. We're just not ready yet, and the trend for now is still a bit more bearish for the short term. I want to make that very, very clear. All right, so I'm going to talk more about some more data, talk about next week a bit, and also a lot of headlines coming out involving NIO's news before I break down the chart. So just know that for next week, we have very, very minor data for the most part. Monday, we just have bill auctions and very minor stuff. For Tuesday, we just have manufacturing numbers. I think the market's going to be closed for Wednesday. I'll have to double check on that, but there's not really much coming out anyways. For Thursday, all we have is just initial jobless claims and some important employment numbers and new orders coming out from the Philly Fed, and that's pretty much it. And then for Friday, we have some important PMI data. So we have more important data coming out around like Thursday and Friday, but most of the data is once again kind of minor compared to like a CPI or an FOMC. Those already came out for this week, so there's not going to be as much important stuff coming out for next week. The fear and greed index is currently at fear right now. The market is becoming more fearful as we're going higher. But once again, momentum is still very greedy as buyers are still defending. Even as SPY was dipping today, we saw buyers defend and they're still holding things up. The puts and call option positioning is still at extreme greed. This is because, once again, we're seeing some more puts being closed and more call buying that's improving. And market volatility is also kind of flat right now. We currently have this at a very, very flat level, and it's quite neutral right now. So we want to give this some more time just to see how things develop. But that's pretty much it, at least for these other indicators. As far as NIO goes, there's some news right over here that NIO has the new luxurious 6-seat SUV, the EL8. That's going to be very smart, safe, and sustainable. The EL8 is also going to be available in Denmark, Germany, the Netherlands, and many other places. That's good news for them. This was actually getting a lot of headlines because NIO is launching their ES8. It's basically based on the NT 2.0 platform in 5 European countries. It also launched the ET7, the EL7, a bunch of others in Europe since entering the market in 2021. That's absolutely awesome for NIO, at least as a company, as we're going to see a lot more growth thanks to this. But there are some questions about whether or not the tariffs are going to be raised on NIO and to what extent. We're still looking into that. We don't truly know yet, but there is a risk of that. So looking at their new protective policies and such. So that's something else that's worth noting. Also, the EL series models are ES series in China. They're renamed in Europe due to a lawsuit. And there's been a lot of news about, what's going to happen with new developments. So I'll be waiting to see what happens with these tariffs. There's been a lot of talk about this. NIO is currently not under investigation like many other Chinese EVs, but we'll see. We're just waiting for that. But other than that, we are still very, very bullish. We're still very, very bullish for the long term. The reason why NIO has been dipping is because they are facing an additional 21% in weighted tariffs, but it could actually change depending on other factors. So that's something that I actually noticed with the new European Commission announcing this. That's why the share price has been dipping, but I'm going to wait and see what other developments come and to what extent NIO will be subjected to other ones. So NIO has also mentioned that they are in opposition of these tariffs. They don't really like them at them. And they mentioned that's actually not very good for their business as a whole, but it's not going to discourage them from doing what they're doing best, and that is continuing to sell and expand in Europe. Now, when it comes to their EVs, one thing that's worth noting is that between June 3rd and June 9th, we had some more data come out. NIO had about, this is about 3,900 deliveries in total, at least for this period. I'm sorry, it's 3,500, not 3,900. A little bit of a decrease, but it's not too bad looking. There's also some news over here about how the Onvo L60 is going to be revealed with 460 horsepower, essentially. That's going to be very useful with the BYD battery. On top of this, when they start using their own batteries, there could be more adjustments to be made. That's soon to be adjusted depending on different factors. But once again, very, very cool stuff right now. They have different RWD versions, so that's very, very awesome. We have 23 million in volume, so volume is very flat. There's not really much else that's going on. So what do I see for the share price? Honestly, guys, with this inverted cup and handle, there's a good chance we're going to see a little bit more downside to fully fill this gap. So I think that NIO is going to dip a bit more to about 4.2 next week. We could even go lower than that. So at least 4.2 is coming. Then we'll see if we bounce off this or not. But NIO is looking a bit more bearish, at least technically speaking, for now. Now, for SPY, on the other hand, we're still overall on an uptrend, but we'll have to be watching to see how much higher this could go because, like I said before, resistance is getting tougher and tougher and tougher for SPY the higher this thing tries to climb. And we actually have this very, very nice looking potential flag that's forming. I still want to be careful with this because, like I said earlier, NIO has this resistance that's approaching, and the higher we go, the more risky it's going to become. Now, with this flag, I would say that for NIO in the overall, not NIO, for SPY in the overall market, I would be very careful. It is possible we try to go a little higher going into Monday, seeing how today we kind of like pumped for most of the day. But I think that despite us going a little bit higher, I'd be watching the 544 resistance. We did reject off here like 2 times, and there's a tight range between 544 and 540. So although there is some more upside potential, just know that the resistance is very tough, and there is still a risk of us getting rejected again. Nvidia is pushing to the low 130s, but just know that resistance is actually tougher up here. So I'd be careful as we try to push to these levels. Could we go a little higher? Yes, we could. We could retest 132 all over again, but I think that we're going to see a lot of choppy price action up here. Bitcoin, for those who are interested, is also kind of like dipping a bit. We're seeing some buyers defending this 160, the 65,000 area. If we do rebound, we could be looking for a retest of 66,000. But the overall trend on Bitcoin is still more bearish and it's been downtrending for quite some time, forming a double top. So I do see a risk of it dipping even lower if we lose 65,000. For Tesla, Tesla's actually kind of looking a little bit weak, at least to some extent, because it did get a little rejection. But when you zoom out like this, the overall picture is still bullish as we have a nice inverse head and shoulders. So I do favor upsides coming later on during the summer. It's just that Tesla's not ready quite yet. We kind of popped and dropped so far, so we're just waiting for it to get a nice breakout. I think there's a good chance it will eventually break out from this range. We're actually back in it, so we have to give it some more time. But I think that Tesla will eventually get the breakout. We just have to give it the opportunity. So in my opinion, we'll be watching as long as we hold above 168. Tesla should continue to rebound. We have to try to hold above this support. If we don't do so, it's not going to look too good. So we'll see how that goes. But I do see potential for next week for Tesla to see possibly a little bounce. We might dip down here once again towards 173, then rebound again. And we'll be watching to see if we can get back up to 180. So I'll be watching for that. The QQQ is continuing to push towards the 480 area, but just be careful because the higher we go, the riskier it's becoming as volume is declining, and we're also seeing less and less momentum. So we could go a little hard to about the low 480s on the QQQ, but I'd be careful because resistance is going to get tougher and tougher, so be very, very mindful of that. For Apple, we have 212.5 as support. If we lose this, we'll be looking for 210. So just be mindful of that as well. We have tough resistance on Apple. And it's actually starting to downtrend a bit, which could slow the QQQ down. And then last but not least, we have AMC and GameStop. They're both very flat. We need to see GameStop break and hold 30 to remain bullish. Hasn't been able to do so yet. If we do it, then yes, we'll be looking for a bounce, but we're not quite there yet. Same thing with AMC. We're still kind of flat right now. If we can manage to break and hold this resistance on 5.5, then I'll be looking for a push. We're not ready yet, so we have to give it more time. With that being said, guys, I think I'm just going to conclude the video from here. Thank you all so much for listening. For NIO, there is going to be more downside potential for the short term, but for the medium to long term, I'm still very bullish. So give this company the time it needs, and we'll see how things go. Thank you for listening, guys. Have an absolutely incredible weekend. I'll see you guys on Sunday. I'm going to take a break tomorrow, so I will not be here tomorrow. I'll just see you guys on Sunday. So until then, take care and peace out.